Hopper, over. Hop, you got anything?
I got nothing. Who are we looking for again?
Eric Engbo, just some wannabe YouTuber.
What's a YouTuber?
I don't know. This is the 80s. Because reasons.
Alrighty, the Olympus 25mm f1.8 lens. My most used Micro Four Thirds lens still today. Why, you might ask? It's a mystery for the ages. This goes back almost 6 years ago, when I first got the Panasonic GH4 and all that jazz. I actually had some money back then when I had my own little company, and I was completely clueless when it came to cameras and lenses actually. So I just bought a couple of lenses without knowing what they actually did. So the first couple of lenses I got was the Samyang 7.5 f3.5 lens, a fisheye lens. A lens that I never use to this day, because reasons. And another lens that I got, this is almost 6 years ago, still have it, is the Lumix G Vario 3.5 to 5.6 14 to 42 pancake lens with a motorized focus pull ring stuff thing. A lens that I also never use, so right on. And finally a lens that I don't have anymore, that was a Olympus 25mm f2.8 pancake lens, if I remember correctly. And it was about that time I started to obsess about blurry backgrounds. Once I realized the full frame equivalence stuff, 25mm is not that wide, and f2.8 on a Micro Four Thirds sensor is not right on. But it's definitely not true today in my mind. You can definitely blur things out at f2.8 or f3.5 on a Micro Four Thirds lens, but that wasn't the case back then. So I realized that 25mm is like the equivalent of a nifty 50. This goddamn full frame equivalence nonsense. Right on. So I actually went back to the camera store and changed my Olympus lens to this lens. And that's about it. That's the backstory for today. And again about the full frame equivalence stuff. A 25mm lens is always a 25mm lens. Keep that in mind. We're talking about a field of view equivalence here. So 25mm times 2, something crop factor, equals a 50mm field of view. And with that said, if you take the aperture 1.8 times 2, you get a f3.6 equivalent aperture. Something full frame. But if the Micro Four Thirds system is your first camera system ever, who cares? If you don't care about crop factors and all that jazz compared to other camera sensors, let's do a little recap. Right on. This is what you need to know. This is how 45mm looks. 25mm. 14mm. And as an added bonus, this is 7.5mm. So far away. So, let's review this thing. So, back in 2014, I got this little devil for about $390. And it costs pretty much the same nowadays. For some reason, I would recommend looking for lenses secondhand, just in general. If money is tight for ya, There's also a Panasonic 25mm f1.7 lens that's like half the price of the Olympus, which is a fairly popular lens. Haven't tried it myself, but they seem to be fairly similar, quality-wise. Don't take my word for it though. Moving on. The size. It's quite a compact little lens. Don't really have anything to compare it to size-wise. I have an old Nikon 50mm Nikon E-series pancake lens, but they are roughly the same size, so pointless comparison indeed. Compared to the Lumix 14mm f2.5 lens, the focusing ring is definitely more accessible. As I have an older camera, the oldie but goldie Panasonic GH4, I can't adjust the focus sensitivity in the camera body. But you're definitely able to pull focus from the closest to the furthest without having to take your hand off of it in one go, even if it's a bit of a hassle. It's fly-by-wire as most Micro Four Thirds lenses, so you can spin that little thing all day long. No hard stops here, unfortunately. As a side note, these kind of focus systems have like a stepping quality to them. It's more apparent when you're shooting in slow motion, or maybe if you're doing a really slow focus pull. It's not 100% smooth, as it changes focus in little increments, or something like that. Sharpness. As some of you know, I'm not a pixel peeping kind of guy, but I think this lens is pretty darn sharp, even at wide open. Sure, chromatic aberration can be seen in harsh overexposed conditions. Nothing that can't be corrected in post, and it's a non-issue for video work, if you ask me. Macro. It's not a macro lens, but you can get kinda close to subjects, if you're into that kind of thing. Aperture. If you only have a kit lens at the moment, you might be wondering about the benefits of a faster lens. My kit lens goes from f3.5 to f5.6 at the long end, so when I zoom into 25mm, it has an aperture of f5. I'm only using Olympus 25mm here, but it's just to show you the difference between f5 and f1.8. Autofocus. It is what it is, almost a 6-year-old camera and the now infamous Panasonic Contrast Detect autofocus. If you have a GH5 with the latest firmware, you'll probably get much better results. Autofocus for photography is pretty good though. Now, the answer you all been waiting for. Will it vlog? Nya, I must say. With my arm fully extended, there's still just a lot of face in the frame. The lens is not stabilized, and my camera lacks in-body stabilization, so it is what it is. Put it on a tripod. Get creative. I don't know. As a side note, mine didn't come with a lens hood, so I can't review that part unfortunately. The flares may not be the sexiest, but it's definitely not insanely out of control. Now it's time for a mandatory montage. In conclusion, the Olympus 25 f1.8 is pretty right on and has served me well over the years. Blurring out the background is not a must in life, but when you go from a kit lens to a faster prime lens, you start to understand lenses in a different way. Instead of zooming in and out, you're forced to move around and plan your shot differently, which is kinda neat. However, I did struggle to get enough room during the intro sketch, so it's not an all-around lens by any means. But that's okay, because I say so. Something filler. Mummel, mummel, mummel. Hej.